Hello, I'm David Hunt, CEO and founder of the Hyperion Cleantech Group and your host for the Leaders in Cleantech podcast. Now, I'm always keen to listen to feedback from the audience, and recently I've been asked quite a few times actually about getting the episodes onto YouTube. So as from today, not only will you be able to download and subscribe on Apple, Spotify, all the usual podcast platforms, you'll be able to subscribe on YouTube. So if you are watching, welcome. Thanks for joining us. And if you're still listening, great. Thanks very much for the feedback so far. Today, we're doing something a little bit unusual in terms it's the first face-to-face podcast I've done since pre-pandemic, actually, namely because a great entrepreneur based in the northwest of England, Asif Ghafoor, who's the CEO and co-founder of Be.EV, is my guest today. They've just dropped a fantastic £110 million raise, which is enabling them to go out into the field and build clean mobility and EV charging hubs across the north of England. I hope you enjoy the episode. Asif, great to have you on the Leaders in Cleantech podcast.
Well, thank you for the invitation.
And it's great to be doing it face-to-face, actually, because it's been I think pre-pandemic was the first or the last time we did a podcast face-to-face. So it's great to host you here in your hometown of Liverpool.
Yeah, it's great to be back. And I know the local area as well. So I was more than happy to come in.
Great. Now you're doing you're all over the place at the moment with Be.EV, but there's lots to get into. But I always like to start with my guests, just a little bit of a flavour of your journey, because the podcast is as much about entrepreneurship as it is about technology and a combination of things. And you've, as do most people, got an interesting backstory. So perhaps you can share a little bit of where and how you came to co-found Be.EV.
So I've got a background really in infrastructure. So I've been involved in infrastructure for 25 years. Mm-hmm. And the bit which got me interested probably about 10 years ago was looking at the way infrastructure is being delivered and how the fact that it hasn't really changed in the last 100 years. But if you look at the forward vision and take technology, data and sustainability into account, then the sector is ripe for disruption. Mm-hmm. And actually from there becomes opportunity if you want to try and grab that. And that's kind of where the idea of let's set up a business around these forces and try and develop it.
Okay. I mean, obviously the whole mobility thing is hugely disruptive, but again, within technology and within solutions, there's lots of things going on, whether it be in renewables, whether it be in AI or other platforms. Why particularly mobility?
I kind of started, a real focus was looking at autonomous vehicles, actually, if I'm being really honest. Mm-hmm. And I was probably ahead of myself slightly in looking at the connectivity between telecommunications, energy, and mobility. If you reel that backwards 5 steps, you arrive at EV. And EV charging and the lack of infrastructure, which is kind of where we end up starting as a business as well.
So when did you actually found the business or co-found the business?
So we set up the business in March 2020. So actually in lockdown.
That's a great timing. Yeah.
So perfect timing to set up a business. And actually the idea had been developing for 5 years earlier. So it wasn't as if we just woke up in the middle of lockdown. We just recognized working in large organizations trying to do what we wanted to do, the oil tanker was not going to turn at the pace we wanted it to. Yeah. So we decided, I decided let's go for it. And I called a close friend who is my business partner, Adrian Gray now. And we basically pulled it together. Okay.
And it's been quite a journey in that reasonably short period of time to a big fundraise recently, which we will talk about. But again, looking at the mobility space, a lot of us obviously know that, and those that drive EVs in cities, you're normally reasonably okay, and motorways to an extent, there's still lots of work that needs to be done. But in rural areas and sort of non-city centres, it's a bit more of a challenge finding infrastructure and finding infrastructure that works as much as anything. And that seems to be the problem you're looking to solve.
No, actually, what we're trying to do is build concentrated networks in locations where we're based. So instead of going down the route of saying, let's set up put chargers everywhere in the whole of the UK at step one. Yeah. We kind of went in a regional model because we want to, and we started with Transport for Greater Manchester and the Greater Manchester area, and the cities are massively underserved. Yeah. The rural areas have got nothing at all, and there's no real plan. And if we really want to drive policy objectives, which are clean air targets, and then in Greater Manchester, the mayor's got a very clear target of achieving clean air by 2040, and transport being such a large emitter of that, then having that policy meant that actually we had a lot of support and confidence that once we go out there, we'll be able to work with public, private sector and being able to deliver that infrastructure and deliver in a concentrated fashion.
Okay. So in terms of your previous experience, because you mentioned the mayor in Manchester, Andy Burnham, and Steve Rodham in Liverpool, both very progressive, I think, mayors and have a clean agenda, both for air and for creating jobs. Was this the first time you started to work with public sector in that way, and what kind of response did you get when you started to reach out to those organisations?
Well, we followed a traditional tender process with Greater Manchester. But when we approached them and actually came up with our ideas, which we were competing against incumbents already who had EV businesses set up. They thought our ideas were fresh, they were different. And the fact that we spent a huge amount of time, and the business today spends a huge amount of time thinking about the community and how you can actually get the community involved in the way the infrastructure is being built.
Right.
And they thought that was different, and they liked it, and they selected us. That's kind of what we've been building on since then as well.
Talk a bit more about that community then, Asif, because again, that is a factor that oftentimes I felt as an EV driver, it's something stuck in and you kind of put up with it. Fortunately, most of us charge at home, but that sense of community and having people involved in where and how sites are sort of chosen, and that kind of sense of making it an easy process to move from an ICE vehicle to an electric vehicle. Tell us a bit more how you perceive that from a Be.EV point of view. What's your sort of mission, if you like, or how do you perceive solving the challenges that EV drivers have?
Not making a political statement about this, but if you take a step back away from EV for a second and look at just events around us. So we've had Brexit, we've had a rise in populism, and in my own personal experience, every time I've ever built an infrastructure project, I've had people complaining.
Right.
People are unhappy. You build a new school, people are out protesting.
Yeah.
So how do you actually get people who are affected by this infrastructure daily involved? And how do you get their voice listened to and actually talk and find out what they want out of this? That's the whole idea behind the community as a step one. So when we're building this infrastructure, it isn't just let's get loads of chargers in the ground where I think they should go. We have a membership program.
Okay.
So we have 16,000 members signed up. We ask them questions. We have members events. We invite them in, and they have some interesting views. And we're conscious also that this early adopter group are giving us some views, but actually we also need to think about the mass market because the behaviors might be different. And how do we then engage with the communities, and how do we actually get the viewpoints across? Because fundamentally, these are the drivers of the future as well, who we should be targeting. So we spend a huge amount of time as a business just thinking about that community engagement and getting that community voice into the business.
And what sort of places will we start to see the product already in situ, and what are sort of on the horizon? Whether is that retail parks, is that public charging, is that workspace and sort of fleet charging? What's the sort of the sweet spot for where you're looking for sites and where you're starting to build infrastructure?
Yeah, the big challenge actually I always find, and my niece made me laugh recently because we run a competition with our members to select and send in ideas of where to put chargers, and they get credits and prizes. And she put in 4 nominations. And she highlights the problem which we have, which is actually when you look in a concentrated network, as let's just say Greater Manchester or Merseyside or Newcastle, it can go anywhere. And you need to come up with a plan. And the plan, having done quite a lot of trial and error, we have 140 units in the ground today. Okay. Some of those in car parks, some of those on street. We found the best model is really to try and create local hubs and try and put in rapid, ultra rapid charging and make those into typically their destinations. Right. So people are doing something there, but also at the same time, people are also, local people can actually park their vehicle and actually stay with it and do something, or park and go home. And we do lots of data analytics of looking at how we map these out across a particular region and create 10-minute walking isochrones on the back of that and so on. So we've gone off a little bit off the on-street because we've had so many issues with traffic management and cables on pavements and so on. And we've tried to pull people into regional and local hubs and develop concentrated networks on the back of that.
Okay. And how have you coped with, because there's a lot of complexity in choosing a site that's either suggested to or is receptive from your members and from the community. Overlaid on that, you've obviously got basic planning in terms of the site, and then you've got the issues with getting power to the suppliers sufficiently. So how are you approaching those issues in terms of all the complexity of getting, once you've chosen or highlighted a potential site, actually bringing that to success?
Well, that's where I think if you ever look, I spend my entire time now out on the road looking at car parks. That's just my whole team. It doesn't get any more exciting than that. And physically, we visit every site.
Yeah.
So we may do a desktop step one, but we go to the site, we go and have a look at the site. We engage with the district network operators who can tell us how much power there is on every site before we take the site owner any further.
Okay.
And then we and then we actually throw that site into our data pool and our data lake to look at how does it fit around all of the other sites we're developing nearby. What else is already in that particular area? So we're not cannibalizing the market as well. We're thinking about utilization. Fundamentally, all of those various events and activities are thinking about the end user and that end user experience. Why will someone come to that particular site, and why will they keep on coming back to it in 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, 10 years? That's what we're thinking about when we're looking at those particular sites.
And future plan's an interesting one because, again, the rollout of EVs is significant and exponential, but there's still a relatively small number. But we all know that's going to change fairly drastically over the next 4, 5, 6 years. How are you sort of future-proofing sites? Because again, the way that people charge and where and how they conduct will evolve, obviously. So how are you looking at the sort of the long term for both your sites and for the business?
So we're trying to create these local hubs, and those hubs will expand based on, again, on the data we get from the chargers and how people are using them. We have created quite detailed demand modeling. So we're tracking potential usage against our own, because we today 2% of vehicles on the road are electric. By 2030, it'll be 30%. So we've mapped all that out, and we can track our usage versus our predicted usage. And if that is exceeding it, we're actually starting to build more equipment onto that particular site and add more and more. So, because we don't want, again, back to the end user experience, we don't want people queuing as well. So the opposite effect of no infrastructure can be actually, it's a pain, I won't go there because I can never get on to the infrastructure in those peak periods. So we're planning that out. And when we go to a site, we're trying to put in what we call the minimum. So we're not trying to go, there's 100 spaces, let's put 100 chargers out there. We're thinking about the site and saying, okay, maybe 8, 12 bays at a starter, start looking at the data, look at the user behavior, and think about that site as a growing site and build the power infrastructure so we can actually grow it over time. Because the equipment and the technology will move on as well. So this phase of what we're trying to put in is what we think is the most up-to-date tech. But actually, we know it's going to change. So you don't want to, again, put too much in because it's going to get better and better as the world develops.
As all DC charging at the moment?
But predominantly, but we're not anti-AC. So we are putting fast chargers in. Certain behavior. We look at the dwell behavior and then make a decision. So in a hospital environment where you've got staff coming in and dwelling all day, they're getting AC. But in the same hospital where you've got patients coming in getting their bloods done, they'll be there 3-4 hours. So that's rapid. And for the people dropping off patients or taxis, they're ultra rapid. So we can actually have 3 different solutions on one site. Okay. And because we're going out to the site and looking at the behavior and the activity, we then blend that and work out the right mix.
I think that's a really interesting blend of using data and also the sort of the physical on site. And if anyone actually looks at your LinkedIn profile, and we'll share that on the podcast page, you are literally here, there, and everywhere checking out these car parks, as you say. I used to look at roofs when I was in solar. Every roof I was staring at. So, but you're combining this physically getting to the site with deep analysis of data rather than just thinking, well, there's a hub there, there's a hub there, and there's 70 miles between, so let's plump one in the middle. Quite a lot of sophistication of using data and being a lot more purposeful about where you're rolling out infrastructure.
Yeah, and we also employ a lot of local people. in the area. So our model today covers predominantly the north of England. We are doing a number of national contracts as well, but we started somewhere. We had to start somewhere. So we said, north of England, let's build out concentrated networks. If you take Newcastle, I said 2% of vehicles on the road are electric. In Newcastle, it's 0.41%.
Right. Okay.
So, there's a bit of catch up. And of course, people aren't switching over because there's no infrastructure in the particular area. But we employ local people who know the local area, whether it's land agents, whether it's local businesses. The whole model is based around this, building out a national network by using local contacts and local support and creating local jobs on the back of it as well.
We'll talk about that for a moment. Again, we'll come back to the technology. But you talked about sort of having teams in various different places. You started the business at the beginning of the pandemic. You've obviously grown in a very fast-paced and disruptive marketplace. How many employees do you have at the moment?
So we've got 17 grown to 20.
Okay. I know the team at Fully Charged are supporting with that,
yes.
So we can talk a bit more about that, what you're looking for in a moment. But in terms of that local jobs and local content, there's a lot going on as for any founder. Talk on a personal level about the challenges of starting a business early in pandemic when nobody knew quite how long it would last or how it would impact and all these other kinds of things. And just running a business or creating a business is always challenging. What have been some of the biggest personal challenges and rewards for you in the business so far?
I think I'll be very honest, maybe this is a self-belief, but I always thought when we kind of came up with the idea, people will get over the pandemic one way or another, and people are going to want shiny new electric cars. So there's going to be a market there fundamentally, and we should build on the basis that the horrible situation we were in will be solved one way or another. The challenges are the classic. We've done the cliches. We've sat in around my kitchen table as a group, trying to build a business, to borrowing a friend's office in Manchester, to taking up our own office space, and all the way through that, because this is a very capital-intensive sector, and we've kind of all the way through been planning for the next step. So we've raised the funding now. I'm already planning for the next 2 steps in terms of how much more additional capital and what scale of business we're going to need to be able to remain relevant. And that's kind of a key thing in this space. From a personal challenge, it's bonkers. It's the best way to describe it. I have no personal life, really. By the time I finally get home on a Friday, I'm exhausted. Saturday, I'm working. And then I'm kind of coming back to work again and getting going again. There's no off. But actually, my business partner and I both have kind of sat and talked about this and said it's enjoyable. And while it's enjoyable, and hopefully the team is enjoying it as much as we are, then we're going to keep on going at this pace. And we've done a lot in such a small period of time as well. It's
really interesting. The number of guests on the podcast who say that basically if you weren't insane, you would never start a business, which resonates. But like you say, the other key factor is it's work, but there's a sense of mission and a sense of enjoyment that sort of gets you over those hurdles.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And actually, interestingly, I've had some very close friends kind of stop me and say, you need to stop and enjoy and celebrate certain successes, because what tends to happen is, we got the fundraise over the line, and I'm like, okay, guys, let's get going. And they're like, no, have you stopped and just done something with that in terms of celebration and so on? So, I'm trying to be really conscious of just kind of stopping and enjoying it. But when you're also on quite a mission and a speed around it, then I'm kind of like, okay, yes, we'll have a bit of time, then we'll move on.
So it's capitalizing on the successes or even picking stuff up quickly from the failures, which all face this business, isn't it? So the things that go well, you're straight back on the horse, so to speak. And when things do go well, it makes you think, well, what's the next thing? Yeah,
and you need to remember, I need to remember the people element to this. So when there was just the 6 of us, it was a slightly different dynamic. Now we're at 20 people. People want to stop and celebrate, and they want the praise, and they want to enjoy success rather than just be on a permanent driven route to the ultimate business growth. And that's important as well.
Definitely.
And that requires especially someone like me who's kind of on a mission,
Yeah.
I need to kind of stop and think about that and say, okay, no, I agree.
Yeah.
I do need to kind of pause.
Yeah, and I revert to the cultural mix. It is exceptionally important as you scale the team, but let's not overscan or forget to sort of, I guess, celebrate the recent fundraise, which was 110 million from Octopus, or up to 110 million from Octopus, which is brilliant. A big number. Any fundraising is challenging. Every founder, has that distraction of always looking at the next round of funding, particularly when you're capital intensive as you are. That was tremendous and must have felt great, even if you didn't perhaps smell the flowers, the roses as much as you could have done. But also it must have taken a lot of time where you're both running the business, building the team, and you've got this big thing to get done.
Yeah.
How did you cope with that?
Well, my background, I've done a lot of large fundraisers as part of building out infrastructure. So I kind of recognized, and Adrian's done similar. So we both kind of knew how much work was going to be involved.
Okay.
So early on, we decided that even though we felt we could do it ourselves, we're going to bring in experts. So we appointed EY as financial advisors, GLA, legal advisors, and wrapped ourselves with a whole team around us, recognizing they're going to have to do a huge amount of push.
Yeah.
And in between, we got a guy called Tom Sherrod to come and join the team as well. And he kind of led the daily charge.
Okay.
So we organized ourselves knowing it was going to be a huge amount of work. And then, and that made it a little bit easier. But, there were certain days where we did the whole day job from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And then at 7 p.m. we started the fundraise activities at midnight, and then back on it again.
It's not just students that pull all-nighters, right?
It's not something to do anymore at all.
It's a good point. Entrepreneurs often do. So, again, we touched on briefly the culture as you evolve a business, and that always fascinates me, the sort of the journey of the business in terms of its scaling, but also as it evolves, more people are becoming involved, you delegate more, you have to trust more, you have to let go of certain things as a founder, and then you create this culture where everybody, of course, has to share the mission, but not everybody is a founder, so that can sometimes be challenging. Tell me a little bit about your the culture that you're evolving as a business, because I know Joseph Seal Driver, who's joined you recently, so I know it's a positive place, but give us a flavour of the sort of the environment that the culture that you're looking to build within the organisation.
Well, I think the interesting thing is the dynamic is different because you've got founder owners running the business, and so in a lot our culture and our behaviours kind of drives the way the business will grow. And if you just take myself and Adrian, very different personalities, but that's why it works. Yep. So I'm slightly off. My mind's on a race and on a mission to kind of go, let's build this business, let's keep on cracking on. Yeah. And historically, Adrian's nickname used to be Asif's Brain. And that's how he really operates. He's kind of, he's considered, he's calculated, he's working things out. He's saying, doing a bit of the detail around that and actually keeping the operations of the business pretty sane. Yeah. And with that pace, there is a high level of pace and high level of work required, which actually I think everyone has come in has kind of gone, wow, this is slightly chaotic, but slightly very fast. Yeah. And actually, and majority of people kind of get on very quickly and actually work out their pattern of how they're able to work in that kind of environment. For us, was quite important that we actually gave employees some ownership in the business. So we've done that equally. So we've not said, juniors don't get anything, seniors get everything, because for the compensation for all that work people are putting in, the effort and the strain, you've got to feel like I'm actually part of this. So that's been important to us. And then the rest of the time, actually the team, the dynamics work well. It's quite a happy, jolly dynamic within the team. We brought on a non-exec, who's now our chairman, Will Stratton Morris, who's the chief exec of Cafe Nero. Right. And he's run a few workshops on culture for us quite early on as well, because I was conscious the culture of the 6 was going to be massively different from 20.
Exactly.
And it needs to adapt, but I still would like to keep the core
the essence of it,
of the way we operate, the way we behave, and so on. The big thing you'll always have to remember when you work with us is certain things we've just banned. So we're not shopping in Amazon.
Right.
I'm proud to say, because I just think you've got to have some values and beliefs which you want to live by as an organization. And, small things like that are as important to us as, the type of partner we selected for the fundraise, the partners we work with, the type of sites. Is one or two operators when we've looked at sites who then we've done a bit of investigation. We've kind of went, they've got great sites, but do we want to be in a relationship with them? And the answer is, I'd rather not.
Yeah.
I'd rather, there's plenty of sites out there for us to go for. Yeah. And I think we need to have some sort of moral code in the way we operate.
Definitely. I think there's a blessing to some extent because the market is so dynamic and there's so much going on. It's tough, of course, because it's also competitive. But that element of having some core values, that North Star I think you referred to, Ash, I think is so important for the company as it scales. Like you say, cultures evolve and teams grow and things get delegated. But the essence of the values, I think, is critical. At Hyperion, we have a manifesto, which is on the wall, as much as not everyone comes to the office, so everyone hopefully has it on their laptop or their screens. But there's a manifesto which does include some very simple things which are technically not work-related. It's just what we believe in.
Yeah.
And having that, I should say, is scalable because values don't change whether you're 100 people or 1,000 people.
Yes,
well, they shouldn't do at least.
Yeah, exactly. And we try and have a formal session with the team at least once a month to just kind of talk about things. We have at least a 1 week, everyone together discussion as well, and trying to also make sure all the voices are being heard as well amongst the people who are coming into the business.
Yeah. How we come? I think we touched on this before. I started in solar in 2007, and there was a lot of things at the time. It's the solar rush, and it was like the Wild West, and to some extent it was. And there's an element of that within the mobility or EV charging infrastructure space at the moment. How do you collaborate or interact with others in the space, other CPOs, other people that are rolling out infrastructure? Do you have any particular partnerships, or how do you perceive competitors?
Interesting you say that, because we've taken a view that at this stage of our life, we're not getting distracted by what the competition are doing. Mm-hmm. We think we've got very strong views of what we want out of this business, the way we want to build it. We've been doing a lot of work. I don't know if you've seen the way we've been doing our aesthetics around building charging hubs, the forecourt of the future. For us, that's an opportunity to create a park where you can charge. Mm-hmm. And we're building those sites across. So we haven't been looking over our shoulder to say, what have Shell done here, or what have BP done there, and so on and so on. And I'm not knocking that. Let them carry on with it. And I kind of feel a little bit there isn't anyone who's kind of wowing me at this moment in the sector. If we bump into a competitor at an event, we've actually not been going to events or conferences where it's just a competitor chit chat. Because I'm kind of like, well, it's not really where we are as a business. For us, we need to be building out our networks. That's where our 100% effort needs to be. So we haven't been doing a lot in that particular space. And I think the challenge, what worries me a little bit with the space, and it's interesting I call it the Wild West of charging. I know one large mail delivery business went out to market, and they had 110 responses from different EV charge point providers, from your local electrician who's going to buy something off the internet all the way through to professional organizations. And that isn't sustainable. And the market will sort of solve itself over time. But in the meantime, there's quite a lot of mis-selling going on. And in particular, for us, one of the big things which we're pushing really hard is making sure that whatever we put into the ground is working all the time. Which is a big thing not happening in this sector. It is, The worst thing is either you haven't got charging. Second worst thing, you've got charging and it doesn't work. And a lot of competitors are selling kit, not interested in making sure the network's working properly, and not thinking about, again, going back to the end user experience, that community piece, not thinking about that and the impact that has on those communities and those end users. And so for us, some of the competitor activities are slightly, we see some of the pitches they make, and I'm like, this is just slightly not right.
It's frustrating. There's an element of, because it's so new, everybody can be an expert, and it's very difficult for people outside of the sector to know who is the expert and who isn't, to an extent initially. When, like you say, you get 110 bids and you've never done this before, if you're in a procurement office, how do you know? There's an element of that. And to your other point, there is an element of, as there was with the solar business in EV charging, it's kind of a land grab. Let's just get as many sites, as much stuff in the ground, and kind of not, if it, utilization rates and if it's working on the uptime seem to be not irrelevant, but certainly aren't as adhered to or aren't as focused as you're talking about.
Yeah, and most of our customers, we actually spend a huge amount of time. We'll get approached by, say, a local authority who says, I'm looking for some chargers in my leisure centre. And my first question is, what's your strategy? And they're like, we haven't got any, but we need to get some in because it's a planning request. I'm like, guys, you're going to hate me in 12 months' time because you'll think I've put the wrong chargers in at the wrong speeds or da-da-da-da-da. First thing everybody needs to do, whether it's public or private sector, and this is the first sector I've ever worked in where both public and private are not quite sure what's going on. Suddenly we've gone into a world, we've gone from petrol and diesel, which was the hardest decision was E5, E10 at one point in petrol. We've gone into slow, fast, rapids, kilowatts, AC/DC, CHAdeMO, CCS. Everyone's like, what is going on here? And so we're spending a huge amount of time actually stopping potential clients from making decisions and suggesting they take a big step back and reevaluate their strategy. And we provide them with quite a lot of data. So it's become quite a free consultation process, which we're happy to do because for me, the prize isn't winning that customer today and getting some charging in the ground today. The prize is, are they going to be working with me in 5 years?
Exactly.
And because have I behaved well? Have I given them a network which works? And did they understand what they were buying fundamentally? And if they haven't done the strategy piece and we haven't provided that free advice, they won't know what they're buying. And they're always going to be thinking, oh, that wasn't right. And there's an effort required.
I think that's really, talking back about values, there's really a big issue, that being prepared to walk away from something where you don't compromise yourself. I'm just thinking of one particular site, going back to planning permission, we had a health centre that we need a wind turbine on site. It's in planning and we need one. So they came to our company and it was just the most ridiculous site. And we told them that. And in the end, they went and sort of put one in that was very rapidly taken down by somebody else. And we just had to say, look, it's not the best decision for you. But we actually, the contractor we stayed with, because they recognise that in the future. And I think there's that value around the long-term play. And ultimately, this kind of thing about the rising tide floats all boats. If we do things right, going back to collaboration and competitors, if we just do the right thing, then our businesses thrive, but the business as a whole,
the whole sector will benefit from it. And, there've been circumstances where I've turned around to site owners and they've said, oh, I've been working with X operator for 18 months. I've been to board and I thought I'd just double check in market. And I'm like, I looked at the solution. I was like, well, we could deliver it. However, I hate to say this, but if I was you, I've been in your position. Just sign that. That's a phase one. You're going to have another 5 phases. I said, I've looked at the solution and it looks okay. That's what I would have suggested. But I'm not going to try and bump someone off on that particular, because they'll end up doing nothing because it's taken them 18 months to get to that point. However, I think I'll have a better relationship when they come to a phase 2 or a phase 3 and so on. And it's about everything isn't an immediate win. A lot of this has got to be thought through about the long term.
Absolutely. Jumping back to us as CEO, there's a lot of pressure when you drop a lot of money. And I appreciate it wasn't a £170 check on day one, but it's still a lot of investment, a lot of faith in your business. And now it's a case of deploying that. So how has that changed apart from, it's obviously given you more scope, but how are you the steward of that investment and those partnerships and your relationships? And how are now the next 3 or 4 years looking for Be.EV versus how it was before that money dropped?
Well, what it's done is actually, because we've done a number of fundraisers previously through an abundance green platform to actually get the business kind of moving at a reasonable pace. But now all that done is effectively given us real forward focus where we don't have to keep on looking back and saying, okay, we need to be back in market to raise more capital. It's given a lot of confidence. We had actually built the team up in the belief we'd get the funding. I think you've always got to have your belief in yourself and keep on making that investment. But now we know we've got the capital sitting behind us. If we get through that capital faster, I'm confident Octopus Energy Generation would be wanting to put more capital in. So if we deploy it and produce good results on the back of this, there's further streams funding sitting behind that. And that's quite exciting, actually.
Yeah, absolutely.
As a CEO, it kind of gets you out of bed and think, okay, let's get everyone focused. From a day-to-day perspective, I'm in forensic mode. So I sit with Adrian twice a week. He's on it every day, going through every single step of what could go wrong to avoid things. We've got to get that capital deployed.
Yeah.
We built up a good build-up of pipeline of sites and customers and relationships. Now we've got to scale this in multiples over the next few years.
Yeah. Yeah. Jumping slightly aside, I think there are two critical things, because a lot of the audience that we have are entrepreneurs and founders and investors. But two things, one of which is actually co-founding as opposed to founding. So multiple partners rather than one founder, and your thoughts on that. I don't know if you've ever experienced I've experienced both in the past, and there are pros and cons, of course, to both, but it's really interesting to get your thoughts, because clearly the relationship with Adrian is fundamental to the success of the business. And the other thing is about the quality of the investor, because not all money is equal.
Yes.
And Octopus are a great bunch of people. And again, sometimes it can really tempted as a founder just to take the money that's on the table, because it gives you a bit more runway and it gives you the opportunity to do things. But it's not necessarily the right money for the future of the business. And just broadly some thoughts around funding teams or single founders and choosing the right investor.
Yeah, when I'd kind of been, so Adrian and I knew each other back in the early 10s, and we'd worked together. And I know we say there's a big age gap between us, about 15 years, 16 years age gap between us. However, we immediately got on when we worked together first time around, because we saw the way we complemented each other.
Yeah.
He then went off and worked for Sky, and he was at Sky when I kind of approached him again at the start of 2020 and said, I've got this great idea. Do you want to join and leave Sky? To which he was like, and we'd talked about a number of times about setting up our own business. Yeah. So he was like, yeah, I'd love to be able to do that. I decided quite early on that actually the burden on one for the scale of what we wanted to achieve was just too much. And actually having someone who can actually complement the bonkersness of my brain versus actually getting delivery done as well would be perfect. And so that's why the match. And then if you look at the other people we brought around us, again, I knew a number of people, and I kind of was like, these are great individuals who are going to actually, you got to surround yourself with the team who can actually complement each other's skills. And that's what we've really created with the group, which we've got all the way up to the 20 now. In terms of, and I'm not just saying this, and you'll think, oh God, he's just saying this. If you'd said to me, we started this fundraise back in November 2021. Yeah. And so it's taken nearly a year, it's taken 11 months, 10 months to get to this point. But when we started in November, and you'd said to me, who's your preferred partner from a funding perspective? In my head, it was Octopus Energy Generation for three main factors. One, I love their values and their brand, and I thought it complemented us. Secondly, they had a strong appetite to invest in EV, and they understood, if you look at their other complementary investments in the other spaces. And the third was, I thought there'd be great lead generation, because the way the sectors they're going to be operating in are actually going to be sectors we're operating in. And some of the stuff which, I want to further improve our end user experience. They're an expert in disrupting end user experience in energy, and actually being able to get some of that expertise and some of that advice into the business. So for me, day one, they were a perfect partner. We had a lot of interest, which was just, so we'd originally agreed with EY, phase one of fundraise, we'll meet everyone. Right. Everyone was 29 interested parties. Okay. So we just said to Adrian, we're not meeting everyone. I haven't got that much time available. So we said, we'll try and do that by phase. We end up phase 3. Is when we actually started meeting the investors. And the second favorite investor I knew for a long time, and I really value the people there. But we were pushing Octopus on, and there were a few along the way who basically were offering the cash, but just was just like, and we'd already pre-sifted, so we didn't go. A lot of companies approached EY and said, can we have a look at the information memorandum? And I'd said, no, I don't even want to show it to them, because they don't live up to the values of what we want to try and create. So even within the gang who we decided, there were a few who were just throwing money. But again, their behaviors once you got into the one-on-ones wasn't great.
Yeah.
And so we kind of dismissed them as well. So for us, we have ended up, someone up there is looking after us, because we have ended up where I wanted to end up on the fundraise perspective. And actually the individuals we're sitting opposite who put who organize all the exercise around it. It was interesting because normally when you're buying a business, you can end up in this buy-sell relationship. They were actually, there was a bit of buy-sell relationship, but also quite collaborative at times, and saying, we think we can do this with you and we think we can do that and so on. And actually all of that made me happy and think, actually, this is the right decision. I had no doubt when we had to sign, I had no doubt that this was the right decision.
Partner. Yeah. All those things are critical. I think having the right partner or the right funding, the right values we've touched on as well, the right team we've touched on very briefly. And I think it shows a lot of self-awareness for a leader to be able to recognize these are my strengths and they're abundant, but actually these are the weaknesses. And I need to either fill those in either with a founder if it's early enough, or with the right leadership team, which is what we do at Hyperion. It's just making sure that there's a great fit so that the team ticks all of the boxes. It's not down for every one individual, particularly the CEO, to do everything or to know everything. But it takes a little bit sometimes of a self-awareness in their founder to not think of themselves as, I don't know, the Lone Ranger who comes in and solves all the problems, right?
And the one thing I haven't touched on is partners. So we have developed, our whole model is very much heavily reliant on partners coming along board. So we had DLA, the law firm, some of the senior partners there kind of believed on day one. And so when I approached them back in January 2020 with the idea, their view was, we love the idea, we think this could work really well, and we won't charge you any legal fees until you think you're ready.
Okay.
I was like, wow, okay. And and they did some introductions and so on, similar with EY, similar with Marsh Commercial, HSBC, and so on and so on. If you look at the ecosystem around us, those partners are actually become part of the wider team. And then if you look at the supply chain and the way we're managing the supply chain relationships, a lot of this is for us, again, like I talked about the site owners, with supply chain partners, we're trying to build long-term relationships. This isn't about, can I get something 50p cheaper? Yeah, we need to be okay on price. But actually, does that partner enjoy working with us? Can they see the forward pipeline of work coming through? And do they ultimately want to work with me over one of my competitors?
Right.
That's where I want to get to, that kind of relationship. And if I'm not, and we have check-ins with them, and I ask them simple questions like, am I behaving? Have I done something wrong? And they'll say, a payment took X dates. And I'll be like, Adrian, I'll blame Adrian then. Adrian, why didn't we do that?
Delegation.
Yeah, that's why you needed the brain there, remember? That wasn't a stupid decision.
No, those are really important factors of any successful business, is having those, I should say, partners, the right team, the right partners, the right mentality, the right ethos, the right values. And it's great that you shared a few of those things with us today. Just in closing, it's a hugely dynamic marketplace. What would you like to see broadly in the sector? Bear in mind we've got COP going on, we've got a sort of relatively unstable political situation in the UK at the moment. What factors or changes will enhance not just your business, but the mission to get people driving clean vehicles over the next 3, 4, 5 years? What kind of things would you like to see improve?
Well, it makes me, and actually it's interesting, I was listening to Radio 4 on the way in, and somebody made the comment about the fact that a lot of the activity we need to be doing to be able to deliver the 1.5% is available now. So people switching out of combustion engine vehicles into electric, that's not a choice about, oh, do I fancy doing it? If people really believe in it, people should be doing it.
Yes.
It's as simple as that. And the infrastructure will get built. The faster people are moving, the faster the infrastructure is going to get built. That I'm convinced of. But actually, trying to give the communities and people a choice and an ability to be able to make that switch, and actually giving them the incentives and the drive to be able to make that switch, I think is massively important. For me, one of the areas where I kind of, and it wasn't meant to be a differentiator, but I think it is in the way we look at this. I kind of said, when we build this infrastructure, we're building sometimes into quite bleak urban environments. And we need to be building beautiful charging environments, charging stations people want to go to, and effectively, I'm not going to call them the cathedrals. I've called them historically the way the Victorians built the railways.
Yes. Yeah.
And we now look back 150 years and think, wow, what a beautiful building.
Yeah.
That's what I'd like to be creating as a legacy here of the way we build and the way sites are developed and where people want to go and charge and the way they look and the way that involves the community. And the community, and we mustn't forget, this cannot become the charging for the privileged, the ones who can afford. We've got to create an environment here where charging is available for all. Yeah. Otherwise, we've failed in our mission as a community-driven business, and the sector has failed as well.
No, I agree. Thanks very much for sharing those thoughts with us, Asif. I'll share onto the website page links to Asif on LinkedIn. You can find out all about his travels around the UK and the work that they're doing, and some links to the website. All that information will be there. But for now, thanks very much, Asif, for joining us.
Thank you very much.